Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're Masechtas Nedarim daf Hey. We are going to begin on the top of Hey Amud Aleph, the third line from the top. So we were learning in yesterday's daf that our Mishnah mentions two different statements. The Mishnah tells us that it's necessary in order for a neder to be chal, a person needs to say either mudrani mimcha, mufrashani mimcha, umurchakani mimcha. Choose one of those three, and then also l'chayra, you have to choose. In addition to that, shani oichel lecha, shani toim lecha, aser or menduda ani lecha. So apparently, you need to make both statements, and because of that, Shmuel mentioned that only if you say both will it be valid, which is mashma. If you only say one and not the other, then it's not considered to be a neder. The problem is that we saw brisa that said harizeh aser. So it showed that even if you only made one of those two statements, you didn't combine the two yados languages, nonetheless, it still is chal. So we left off with one possible answer. And Shmuel says, our Mishnah that mentions both is talking in a situation because you had this combined yados, it only will aser the person who made the neder. However, the object, v'chavero mutter, the way that it was framed, the fact you mentioned both, gives the impression that you are not asering the object of the neder. Mashein kain, if you would have only said mudrani himoch by itself, just making that one statement is enough to aser. And we saw in the Ran is because if you only said that without the shani oichel, so you're going to be totally aser, everything. I and my assets are aser to you, and your assets are aser as well. So therefore, interesting enough, sometimes less is more. So if you said only one, then that's when shnei asur. Third line on again Hey Amud Aleph. Tanan hareini alecha cherem. A person places upon himself a cherem hamudar aser, abul madir lo. So l'chayra, this seems to be problematic because the brisa said you only make one statement, and everything is aser shnei asurin. Over here, when only one statement is made, nonetheless, we see that they're both not aser. So Gemara says, "Going to parish v'at olai lo," and you upon me no. So you specified not you. Look in the Ran. V'mai neima de'olecha nami koyel chaveru nechasav. That's what he said. So he said because you specifically specified to exclude you on me. So at olai cherem. You upon me is a cherem. Hanoider aser abul mudir lo. So it's the same question. Gemara says, "Kagayin defarish va'ana alach lo," and I and you know. Avol stama my, which is mashma. If you only made one of the statements, then shnei asurin. So as we established before, that both would be aser. Hamid tiny seivam. Let's look at the last statement over here. It says, "Harein lecha," upon you, v'at olai, and you on me, shneyan asurin. Hadinhu, in that case, dishneyan asurin. Hastamahu de'asa b'chaver mutter. The fact that it mentions that you said it so explicitly, that's the only time, l'chayra, that shneyan asurin, which is mashma in our situation of only making one of these yados statements, l'chayra, we would say the chaver is mutter, which is a question on what we said before. El hachi imar Rabbi Yosi bar Rabbi Chanina. Mutter ani l'cha. If a person makes a statement that I am like making a neder upon myself to you, shnei asurin. In that language, then it's aser both ways. However, mudrani heimach, if instead you say I'm making a neder heimach from you, to hu aser b'chaver mutter. So that would be the distinction in the language. I b'hamas nising tani heimach, but it says heimach. In our Mishnah, since both yados were combined, so he says in that situation, of course the one who makes the neder is aser. However, the chaver is mutter. Aval, only b'mudrani himach. If you only said mudrani himach, shnei masurin. Elam yikara d'shmul hachi itmar. This is what he meant to say. Time di oimer shani oichel chavashana taimacha hu de'ain hu aser el bachila. Maybe that statement will only ask you from eating, but not hana. Ha mudrani mimcha. However, if you said mudrani only, then aser afil b'hana. So the distinction is not whether it's going to asa chavero, but maybe there'll be a distinction if it's only an iser achila or even an iser hana. The hachi lem Shmuel hachi. Then Shmuel should say this, quote, the lo amar el sheni oichel chavasheni tomacha ein iser el bachila. He should say that explicitly. The fact that he doesn't say that, it's probably that's not what they're arguing. That's not the point. That's not a valid interpretation. El hachimar tamdi amar shani oichel chavasheni tomacha hu de aser, because you said both. Aval amar mudrani himach. But if you only said mudrani himach, lo mashma di amar aser. Maybe it's not even mashma that you're saying anything aser at all. My taima mudrani mimcha lo mishta'ina b'hadach mashma. Maybe it just means I don't want to talk to you, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there's an iser hana of deriving benefit from this individual. It just means I don't want to talk to you. So in other words, it's possible that this is what's called yadayim shin mochichais. These languages, this incomplete sentence is not clear. It's not explicitly mentioned, this expression, to really give a good understanding of what you're really trying to get at. So therefore, because it's open to interpretation, lo havi yadayim, according to Shmuel. And that's the same reason. But for shani mimcha, maybe that just means, not that I'm making a neder against you, it means delo avida imach masumatan. Mashma. Maybe it just means I'm not going to do business with you. And when they said Murachakani mimcha, Deloy kamida badal damas, diloch mashma. I'm not going to be within your proximity. I'm going to be socially distant. So therefore, if it only made that one statement, it's possible that maybe it's nothing. It's really not going to have any validity at all. If you make both statements, then yes. But if you only say this one statement, then pumfaker. Not that it'll aser shnehem. No, maybe it won't. The neder will not be chal at all. Look in Rashi, the Ran again. Kleimer oilam kedamrina mikara. Like we said before, dachi lo amar Shmuel l'cha mutter, but taima mishum duli mashma the omer aser. It's not mashma that necessarily you're answering. The Havilhu, and here's the key line of the Rad on Hamid Bays, which we're going to continue to discuss this important concept. Yadayim shin moichichas v'lo have yadayim. According to Shmuel, when you have a statement which is an incomplete sentence and it's an unclear expression, that's not considered to be a yadayim. And the dilma mudrani himach lo mishtamin bahadach mashma, etc. Who says what you're saying is to aser bahana? Ve'afil b'dibor nami lo mitzer. Delo yadinan ilahana ichavin ve'ledibor ichavin. The truth is, you're not going to be asked to anything. You're not even going to be asked to speak to that person because we have no idea what you're talking about. L'chol chad v'chad havilhu yadayim shen mochichais. On either way, you don't know if it's talking about dibor or it's talking about asering with a neder, bahana. So you'll technically, based on that statement, it's not valid, and you could technically still talk to this person. Kivan the time of the Shmuel mishum d'ksav yadayim shen mochichas will have yadayim. Skipping a couple lines, the Tana the Brisa really have yadayim. So we're just saying pashut that there is a machlokus. According to Shmuel, you need to say both statements. If you only make one statement, that's Yodayim Shin Mochichas, and Yodayim Shin Mochichas will have Yodayim. However, according to the Brisa, it says, what do you mean? You could say one statement, it's good enough. But what do you mean? It's Yodayim Shin Mochichas. So the Brisa holds Yodayim Shin Mochichas have Yodayim, that it does work, and therefore it will aser. It will be, that neder will be chal. So it's entirely on that machlokas. Question 11. Umaskana. The Perushal Hadish Shmuel de mudrani lo mashma de armor osir. Kashma Bryson is said mudrani osir af below shani toyim. I've not even gotten to this yet. Okay. So he says, Shmuel Stivirle Katana Diamar Yodayim Shem Mochichas Lo Havi Yodayim. Ubraisa Command Diamar Havi Yodayim. So that's one answer. That when it comes to Shmuel, he holds Yodayim Shem Mochichas Lo Havi Yodayim, and that's why he says it doesn't work. And he argues with the Brisa. Now the second answer, which maybe we're going to get to in a second, but he says as follows, Osir dekatani hainu leishtoi b'hadei. It means just to talk. That's all it means. The Shmuel achila kamar, and Shmuel is going on achila, on the prohibition of eating. Okay. Weiter. Leimak savar Shmuel yadayim shen mechichas ol havi yadayim. Is that what we want to say? Really? Yes. Shmuel Moikim ol masnisin Rabbi Yehuda diamar yadayim shen mechichas ol havi yadayim. We're going to establish that's what it is. That non. How do we see this concept? So it applies by gittin. Gufer shall get. The main language that's found on a divorce document is Hariyam Muteras L'Chol Adam, which happens to be the very end of a get, the last, the line, the 12th line. That you're free to everyone. You're free. Now Rabbi Yehuda says that's not enough. That's considered to be Yadayim Shein Mochichos. Rather, you have to be more specific, and you have to say, Vadain, in this document, Dehavi Lichi, Minoi, it's coming from me, a Sefer Teruchin, a document of separation, V'Igeres Shvukin, which we do mention that as well in a get. We have that language, a letter of abandonment. So my dachak, fine. So therefore, that is like the concept of Yadayim Shein Mochichos Lo Havi Yadayim. So look in Iran. V'Litzarech L'Michta V'Dain. According to the first opinion of the Tanakama, it's not necessary to say V'Dain, this document. De Beloi V'Dain Mashma, De Bahai Gita Megarish Law. Obviously, this is what you're divorcing her with. The Ihu Lo Kemegarish Law, the Yadayim Shemochichas Havi Yadayim. So again, even though it's not clear that it's you doing it and it's this document, but it's pretty seemingly somewhat obvious, even though it wasn't so clearly stipulated. Rabbi Yehuda Omer V'Dain B'Chulu, the Ilu Kosa V'Dain, if you don't specify, say, this document, Havin Yadayim Shemochichos, the Dilma B'Dibor Megarish Law. Come on, we're going to see maybe your intention is just to divorce her with words. And obviously, you cannot divorce a woman with words. It has to be a Sefer Krisos. If you skip a bunch of lines to the fourth wide line in the Ran, that's not Ha'omer. A person says a hey. If a person says a hey, just that language, Harizen Nazir. So then automatically that becomes a Nazir just by that. Bavinin Bavadilma a hey Batainis Kaimer. So what do you mean? Maybe he just is referring to accepting a fast. Yomer Shmuel Kishahaya Nazir Oiver Lafanov. So Shmuel, which is the same person we're talking over here, says he said it while there was a Nazir walking in front of him. Demashma Dehal Lav Hochi. It wasn't for the fact that a Nazir walked by him. Having Yadayim Shem Mochichas will have Yadayim. So that was again a statement that we see this concept that you actually need, at least according to Shmuel, to have a Nazir walking by for us to be able to understand what you're talking about, because otherwise it's not clear, your language. Skipping a couple more lines. So maybe Shmuel doesn't require it. Even though it's true that if you hold Yadayim Shein Mochichas doesn't work, Gabi Gittin Lotzarch Vadain. Maybe he doesn't hold, as we're going to see this also in the Gemara, maybe you cannot compare this concept of Nedarim to Gittin. Maybe you don't need Vadain. Vadain, the Belav, Vadain, Havi Mochiach. It would maybe, it's still, it's Mochiach to get. Yishom the Ein Adam Megarish Eishes Chaveru Kedam Rinan L'Kaman B'Shmaisen. So we're going to end up seeing soon anyway in the Gemara, the Ran's quoting this, that a person is not going to be divorcing his friend's wife. You can't divorce your friend's wife. You're not married to her. So it's obvious that this is your wife that's being divorced. So therefore, even if you don't say V'dain, it's lav davka that it's necessary that Shmuel would require that when it comes to Gittin. Skipping a few more lines. Amalei yesh loimer de Shmuel afil begerishin nami svirle de boilo memer mimeni. That maybe Shmuel actually is precise. That must also be said by Gittin. V'chim shani hasam di amr la li hu adin begerishin. Di amr mimeni. He actually has to specify. El denaka chada dehainu reishim hu adin la seifa. V'hayda loy amr hasam Gittin v'sarach shaniach makayim v'dain mishum deloy boy. He didn't want to include himself in the machlokas over there of the Rabbi Yehuda Rabbanan. So v'nakad aliba de kuli alma tzar sheniach makom hariyat muter sochol adam v'hu adin Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel gufa savar la kavasi sar sheniach af makom b'dain. So it's an interesting shot. According to the Ran, he's saying that the truth is the reason why he didn't mention it is not because he disagrees, that he agrees with the Rabbanan in that case. He really holds that you do need to say V'dain, but he just didn't want to get involved in that aspect of the Machlokas over there. Question 12. HaKoisev Taisei Gittin Omer Shmuel V'sar Sheniach Makoim Har Meter Sachol Adam V'mailoi Kamer Shesar Chaniach Nami Makom L'Lashon V'dain. Why doesn't he also say that you need to do that, to include V'dain? So either, as we said, maybe by Gittin you don't need it because it's considered to be Yodayim Mochichais, because obviously you're not divorcing your friend's wife, or he didn't want to involve himself in this machlokas. This is how he says it. He only mentions what's necessary. That everyone holds you have to say Hari Muter Sochol Adam. Even the Rabbanan say that, so he wanted to just mention something that everyone agreed with. The truth is, he does require B'dain also, but he didn't want to involve himself in the Machlokas at that point. He just wanted to say, by the way, you have to include other stuff, and it doesn't mean only Har B'Teres Chol Adam. Fine. So now that we covered a little bit of the Ran and a couple of questions too, let's go back in the Gemara. So when it comes to Gittin, according to the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda, it's necessary that you have to be more specific, because otherwise it's Yadayim Shin Mochichos. Amai Dochak Shmuel, back in the Gemara, L'ukmal Mastis in Rabbi Yehuda. Why does he say that our Mishnah, therefore, is like Rabbi Yehuda? L'ukmak Rabbanan. Why does he say that our Mishnah is like the Rabbanan? Afagav the Ein Yadayim Mochichos. That even if Ein Yadayim Mochichos, why would he feel obligated to hold like the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda, which is a Das Yochid? So Rabbi Masnisa Kashise, because the Mishnah is challenging. Amai Tani Shani Oichel Lacha, Shani Toyim Lacha. Why does it say that language, Lacha, to you? Listni Shani Oichel, Shani Toyim. Just say it, push it, right? Just say that Shani Oichel, Shani Toyim. Leave out the Lacha business. So Shema Mina, Be'inan Yadayim Mochichais. So it's because it needs to say Yadayim Mochichos. This is actually a beautiful question. Question TB11. So let me just mark this down over here. TB11. Ask the question. I got it right. Maha Chachad Mastisan Didan Reish Nedarim's Svara Yadayim Shem Mochichos will have Yadayim. So as we said, because it mentions Shani Oichel Lacha, Shani Toyim Lacha. It does, if Yadayim Shem Mochichos have Yadayim, you wouldn't need the word Lacha. You would skip that word. So the fact that it says it that way must be a raya that it's necessary to actually say it, Otherwise it wouldn't be Chal. Okay. Let's look at one more question over here. TA 10. Which is like the opinion of Shmuel that we said. So so you have to say both. So the one who says that it is Haviyodayim, and what language will they be in Isser Bachila? This is what I wrote. Shani Ochelcha. Otherwise, maybe he's only talking about ishtoi, talking, walking, etc. Hey, for sure is aser. Hine is a machlokas. That's, again, very hard questions over here to completely understand the frame of what they're asked, what they're looking for. But that is the what I wrote. I don't know if I got it completely right or completely wrong or partially right. Okay, weiter. So now we're going to delve into this a little bit more. Itmar. Yodayim shem mochichos. So again, if you have an incomplete sentence and it's not clearly expressed, so Abaye oimer having yodayim, which seems like the opinion of the Tanakama. For Rava oimer lu have yodayim, which is seemingly like the opinion of Rabbi Huda as well as Shmuel. So Amar Rava. So Rava says, I'll tell you that yodayim shein mochichos is not yodayim. Rav Idi Asfrili, he explained to me, Omer Kra, the pasuk says like this, Nazir lahazer. The pasuk says Nazir lahazer laHashem. Makash yadois nazirus l'nazirus. So we make a hekesh of an ikar nazirus, the proper language, a complete statement, and yados. So ma nazirus b'haflah, just like when it comes to nazirus, to be able to make a statement, it's got to be b'haflah, completely, clearly expressed. Af yados nazirus b'haflah, it has to be b'haflah. And if it's not clear, if it's yodayim shein mochichos, it's clear that it will not work. Okay, let's look in the Ran on the bottom. Diyomer Rav Tarfon, Demi Shirach Averoi, Diyomer Harini Nazir, as we saw before. The person sees his friend, he says, I'm a Nazir, Im Zen Nazir. If this guy's a Nazir. Vohikerbo Osa Shah Shahay Nazir. He had no idea at that moment was he a Nazir or not. Turns out he was a Nazir. So he says, I will be a Nazir, just like maybe like this guy. But he had no idea. So it wasn't b'haflah when he said it. You need to have this element of haflah. You have to know what you're saying as we continue in the Ran on Vav Amud Aleph. The haflah which we said, you have to know this guy's a Nazir, and therefore it's clear that you're going to be becoming a Nazir. It's the same thing. You have to know what this person is saying. Behind, skipping a couple lines, you have to, it's clear. Mil or Rabbanan the pligi hasam alay, Rav Tarfon bi'armina maziris lo boy hafla. However, the Rabbanan don't hold that it's necessary to have hafla, and therefore that's why yodayim shein mochichos, according to the Rabbanan, is hav yodayim. Okay. So the Gemara then continues like this. Maybe this machlokas, which sounds like what we were just saying about the dinim of neder, is the same machlokas when it comes to gittin, which we already know. What is this machlokas? As we said, did not. Gufa shall get hariyat muteres l'chol adam. So that's all you have to say, and that's enough. It's enough to figure it out. Rabbi Huda Omer no, v'dein dehavilichim inoi sifteruchim beget peturin v'ger shvukin. He throws in the words beget peturin. So this get that is by you, it's minoi, it's for me. It's a sefer tiruchin. It's a book of separation. It's a document of exemption, and it's a letter of abandonment. Now, Rabbi Huda says that you also must mention this because otherwise, just saying the words, just saying Harit Muteres L'Chol Adam is not enough. That's the Yodayim Shein Mochichos. So Abaye Di'amar Rabbanan, Rabbi Di'amar Rabbi Huda. So Amalach Abaye no. Anna Di'amar Fil Rabbi Huda. Ad Kan Lo Kam Rabbi Huda B'inan Yodayim Mochichos El Gabi Get. Maybe the only time he's strict when it comes to being very, very clear is when we're talking about giving a get. To be in krisus, v'leika. When it comes to the din of a divorce, it has to be a clear-cut separation. And therefore, if it's not 100% clear, then it's not going to work. That's why you have to be more specific. Alma mishamad, but maybe elsewhere there's no requirement. It's just because the Torah requires it, because the pasuk says that it's necessary by getting. Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe when it comes to a get, you don't need to be so precise in the language. As we continue to Vav and Alf, because we saw this already in the Ran, quoting this Gemara, the Ein Adam and Garishas Eishes Chavero, because a person is not divorcing his friend's wife. If you look in Rashi, the Kasav Haryat Muteras Chalada Mashma, the Ishta Kamar. You're talking about your wife. The Eishes Mi Inish, the Alma in Megarish. Muchamilsa V'Shapim Megarish. It's obvious that's who it is. Otherwise, mishamalu. So therefore, again, it's not necessarily the case that the machlokas by Nedarim is the same as the machlokas by Gittin. Adkan.